Hi guys, welcome back to episode 3 of Mate, Weight and Mental State. If it's your first time here and you're not familiar with what this is, it's basically a video call between me and my mate disguised as a podcast. Now my intention with these video series is to set aside some time for me and my mates to chew the fat about something, sometimes topical, sometimes not, but almost always workout related. However, the bigger picture here is to give me and my mates and anyone else who wants to join me an opportunity to get together to talk, because talking is very important, especially with us blokes who generally don't do enough of it. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't until about 10 minutes in that I realised I didn't actually turn on my camera. So you'll notice for the first 5 or 10 minutes, there's not actually any video footage of me. And in this episode, I speak with a long-time friend of mine, lifting mentor and outer worldly wise friend, Keith, and he's got 25 to 30 years of lifting experience under his belt. So I thought I'd get him on here to pick his brains and to share his knowledge about lifting with the aim to lift for longevity. How to preserve your body, keep lifting, doing what we like to do, but doing it sensibly, healthily, and with the aim to keep doing it as long as we can. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, stick around, get comfortable, and enjoy the podcast. Thanks.
So, episode 3, introducing Keith. Now, this is embarrassing, Keith, because I've known you for probably 15 years, I think I worked out, and known between me and my mates, I don't know if you knew this, Keith, as Big Cockney Keith. Keith was always big. You were just a lifting legend in DW. And basically, I've got Keith on here because I wanted the subject to be about lifting for longevity. And Keith, I hope you don't mind me saying, but you're a little bit older than me. How old are you, Keith?
I'll keep it vague, but I'm in my late 40s.
Okay.
So, I've got a couple of years until I'm hit the 50.
No way. How long have you been lifting?
Well, I started when I was at school. So, I don't know, probably about 12 or 13. My cousins, my older cousins, they had a bench, but then they immigrated back to Hong Kong. That's where my family originally from, and they had one of those weeder weight benches, but with a cast iron, not the cement ones. And I think it was
spin lock bars as well.
Yeah, it was actually, yeah. And they were pound plates, so they were gold, but they were pound. They were done in pounds, which is they're really old plates. So I started kind of lifting then when I was a kid, because watching all the martial arts movies and all that kind of stuff. Used to do a lot of press ups and all that kind of exercise and sort of messing about and all that kind of stuff. And then we got the weight bench and started doing the bench press, and I think that was it, bench press and press ups. Do you know what I mean?
That's all that we did, didn't we? All that we did in the beginning, I was the same. I didn't even have a bench to begin with, right? Yeah. It was just a barbell I inherited from someone, and then I'd kind of use the side of my bed with some stacked up, I think it was like some workbench or something that my dad gave me as perpendicular from the bed, and I used to get it off the bed onto my chest and just rep out until failure. But then I did eventually.
Everything's to failure, isn't it? You got to do it to failure, and then you got to do about 600 sets to failure.
On arms as well. There was obviously chest and a bit of arm.
Oh I did curls as well, because you got to get the guns pumped.
I had a dumbbell that my mum or dad bought me. I think it was like 9 kilograms, and at the time I was like, that's too light. So I duct tape, no light, bricks to it, 1 brick either end, and I'd use that to do everything. And I used to get so much pump on my arm because I'd probably do like 30 sets on biceps.
Yeah, good old days.
So that's been a while then. So what? Yeah. Was it fair to say 30 years lifting?
Well, not really, because then I left school, left home, and I probably didn't pick up any weight or do much in terms of physical activity until I was about 26. Yeah, kind of life and having a good time kind of takes over. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
100%. So, I started in my late teens, and then booze and birds got in the way of my exercise.
So it was that was the focus, and also just trying to find work in the career at focus time, because you don't really know what you want to do at that kind of age. So I kind of floated about, enjoying just socializing and having fun and all that kind of stuff, and trying to get my career and earning potential going. I mean, I didn't discover the weights until I was about 26. I think it was 26.
So that's the age you joined the gym, was it? Like probably joined the gym.
It's a funny story. So I had some friends at work, some good friends at work, and they started going to the gym, and they was talking about how much they can bench and all that kind of stuff. And I hadn't worked out for ages, but I was pretty certain I could still bench more than them, as you do. You know, like males, you know, giving it and testosterone, and you're still pretty young at that age. So when they had a load of guest passes, so they invited me to the gym, and because I didn't think I could bench press, I think it was like 80 kilos or something like that, because I just started, and 80 kilos at the time when you start is quite a, I suppose, quite a big weight. There's no YouTube
Definitely.
or social media or anything like that back then, so there was no expectation. Now there's it's one of the things I wanted to talk about. The genetic pool for people that actually work out is so much bigger, because it's norm. It's the norm to go to the gym now. Everyone goes to the gym, but back then it wasn't. It was like less common, but also you got more training knowledge, so you know how to pick up the right form. You know how to structure your workouts, because you've got the internet, you've got YouTube, you've got tons of ebooks and books out there and all that kind of stuff. So an 80 kilo bench these days is nothing, right? But back then, as a beginner kind of thing, it was quite a big deal. So I went in there.
It's body weight as well, like for a lot of people, isn't it? It's like it's quite a big weight.
Yeah, so I managed to get a few reps. I can't remember how many it was, and then it kind of
35.
everyone was training. Yeah, everyone was training, so it kind of, I suppose, I got that bug again. And then what happened was I got a load of weights, and I was living in London at the time, and then I eventually ended up getting a power rack, which is the power rack I got in my garage now.
Still the same.
Yeah, in my living room, in my flat. And then I moved out of London to go to Milton Keynes, because my first son was born, and then about a year later they started knocking down the big estates.
Did you get your power rack out in time?
I did get my power rack, but the thing is, when I bought that, because we went up to Northampton to that fitness superstore in Northampton. Do you know the one, the big one?
Yeah, I bought my bench from there, I think.
Yeah. So we drove up there. Well, my mate drove up there, and he had a van. We picked up a load of gear. Yeah. Well, he hired one, and we picked up a load of weights. So we had the power rack, we had the bench, Olympic barbell setting about 180 kilograms worth of weight, but there was no lift in my block, and I was on the top floor, which was, it's only 4 stories high, and it was late at night. I think we got back to London about 11 or something, 11 to 12 o'clock at night, and it was lugging up tons of weight. But anyway, we got it set up in my living room. There's a couple of us, and then I got back into it, with, as you know, with a power rack. That's all you need really to kind of do all your main movements.
I'm just going to see, Keith, if that's better. I don't know if I've just changed the view.
Sorry.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah. I don't know what you did. It looks exactly the same to me.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just for me then. Maybe I haven't done anything. I don't know what I'm doing, to be honest. That's wicked though. So you still got the same power rack. That's I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
First thing I bought was a power rack when I properly got into a home gym with Olympic bar, Olympic weights, about 180 kilos, probably the same sort of set, which I bought from my mate for a really decent price, like 300 quid. And it's brilliant.
Yeah. If I was to go back, I would have spent more money on the power rack. If you get I suppose a more commercial one where there's more bolt-ons, you can get to it, you know, like pull downs, the different pull-up bars, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that was the only thing, if anyone's looking out there, is to buy something where you could extend it all out and have something a bit more rigid.
Yeah. Mine's got, like, it's not the strongest of box section, but it did have, I could get a lat pull down attachment or top and bottom pulley attachment, which I did. It's like not a selectorized one, but just with plates. It's pretty good, and that it makes it stick prouder from the wall, but it was really good because it adds just some versatility in the home.
Yeah, no, I've got one of those on mine now, but I've got one not from the same manufacturer because I didn't buy it at the time, and the holes and all that kind of stuff, all the dimensions don't line up, so I've had to hack it with timber and all that kind of stuff, where I've bolted it on and there's a bit of timber joining it together, and it's sturdy enough because you're not going to load up a ton of weight on the pull down.
If it works, right?
It does the job. It's not very pretty.
You don't need it to be, and if it's not like a commercial gym where you're going to be like smashing it for, you know, hours a day, you know, you once a day is a lot less, and I think it'll be it's wicked.
Exactly.
I just think it's nice to have variation.
For sure.
What else you got? You got any dumbbells?
Got dumbbells, I got dumbbells, but I think in hindsight on dumbbells, I probably should have bought the adjustable one, not the adjust. You know, the ones where you can like the Bowflex ones, but with a bit more weight. So you can just do it really easily rather than spend like once. I got fixed weight dumbbells, so like commercial grade dumbbells, like Jordan ones.
We'll show your Instagram because if you're all right with that.
Yeah.
Is this the power rack?
That is yes. So if you look at that, you can see the bodge.
Oh, the wood at the top.
Yeah, and then there's wood. It's just and then I bodged the chin up bar. Can you see
is that the attachment as well? Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a straight bar. You see the straight bar there, which is the original one. And then I got the one with the different grips.
Multi-grip.
So that so that one's done with timber as well. So at the end of the day, I was getting a lot of elbow inflammation with a straight bar. You know, the older you get and all that kind of stuff. So I needed some grip variation to be able to do my pull-ups and chin-ups properly.
That's one thing I was actually going to talk about. Like we've got sort of an old man tips and tricks, right? And one of them is sort of exercise versatility. And I see you got a cheeky hex bar. I've recently bought one of those as well.
Yeah, hex bar's good for hex bar deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, all sorts.
Just for variation, I find it's
exactly.
Nice. I can't conventionally lift properly anymore.
You can't do conventional deads.
I do, but I find it's anything heavy. It's too tasking for me now, especially when I'm not getting sleep at the minute with the new baby and stuff.
Yeah.
This is you, Keith. I was amazed at this. I'm in awe. If I could be your age and press 50 kg dumbbells, mate, this is why you're on the podcast. Because that's super impressive. I'm just trying to compare that to doing an incline with 100 kg barbell. That is worldly harder, I think, 50 kg dumbbells.
You got to get used to what you train with, though. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't be able to do that with a barbell. In fact, I can't.
Would you not?
I tried incline barbell pressing a few years back, and I couldn't even get the bar to my chest because of just because of the fixed.
Yeah, it sits around your neck too much, doesn't
it?
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, really
can't get your elbows in.
Yeah. So it was
definitely. But basically, the point is, Keith's an absolute beast. He's got about 20 years on me, and I just want to pick your brains, Keith. You were always an absolute fountain of knowledge when I was working out with you before. You'd always be like, I remember one of the main things you told me when we were at DW, you were squatting 4 or 5 plates, benching at least 3 plates, and you would always say to me, maybe every 6th to 8th week, do some back volume work. I think I was squatting sort of 160-ish, and we'd go back down to 100, and we'd do 2 balls to wall sets with just volume, like 20 to 23 reps. Do you remember that? You taught me that.
Yeah,
and it really helped.
Yeah. I think volume is key, isn't it, for regeneration and getting blood into the joints and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I didn't really know that at the time. I just followed your advice because you just like you were seriously strong. And then I met you. That was probably, as you say, like what, 2010? Did you say was that?
I think so. Yeah. Roughly.
And then I can't remember. I changed gyms because basically I was on a student discount for ages while I was studying, and then that ran out. So I was like, well, I'm not playing the full price. And then I saw you, I think I'm right in saying, at was it the Stables and Milton Keynes Theatre or something like that? And you popped your elbow, hello, Keith, and you look absolutely incredible. Like you trimmed down a bit, and I remember you saying you were doing like a lot of body weight stuff. What made the change? What happened?
Well, yeah, family, right? Well, I had family when I met you, so I had kids when I met you, but they get older, and they get more active and just running around after family and that.
Just realised I stopped sharing as well.
Yeah, was quite hard work. When as your kids get older, they do a lot more running, jumping, and all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to keep up with them. And also being at that weight, my heaviest I was 110 kilos. My lightest recently was 85, but I float around the 90 mark. So it was quite a big weight drop.
We're nearly the same weight, Keith. I wouldn't believe that. That's mad. That's mad. So what were your lifts back when you were heavy as well? So what, like, as in when you were bigger? Obviously, mobility was different.
Yeah. So the gym lifts are gym lifts, aren't they? And I never did a meet or anything like that. And I don't think that, like, for everyone watching now, because of how everything's progressed and what is the norm now, the norm is a lot different to the norm back then. So if you look back then, if you could bench 3 plates 140 kilos in the gym, you're one of the stronger ones. Now
naturally,
I think,
I might say, as well,
naturally,
right?
yeah. So now, like I say, naturally, you'd be looking at people that be benching 160. I would look, just because of the wider genetic pool and the knowledge out there. And likewise, like a deadlift might be 220 or something as someone who's strong at the gym, but you get people hitting 300 deadlifts that are natural.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different ball game now, and they start training at a younger age. They're more consistent. There's more knowledge out there. They know more about nutrition. They know more about
specific
recovery.
training, I think, as well.
Yeah. They know about training cycles and how to put together a program. They know more about periodization. They know more about all sorts of the active recovery work that people do these days. So everything has gone up a notch. These are natural lifters, and then on top of that, you've got your enhanced lifters, which it's becoming more popular to, it's less of an underground movement now than it was back in the day. So back in the day, you might have the real big fellas and the guys that can shift a ton of weight, and they will probably be the only ones that are on gear. But now it's become the norm. So you've got a lot of people.
It's blurred the lines a little bit.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah. And then
I talked about it in my last one.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just about how it's sort of popular to become, say, Insta famous or something. And so there is this sort of fake natty protocol that some people are taking, jumping on the gear, which is their choice. You do what you want, but perhaps earlier than maybe some other people would have done it in the past, like you say.
I think you really need a strong base before you even look at it. I was always natural like yourself, right? And
lifetime natural. I remember you said to me once, have you ever taken anything? Me? No, I'm lifetime natural.
Yeah.
Which is wicked. I wanted it on a t-shirt.
But it's if you want to take it, then at least wait until you're kind of old enough and you've got a strong enough base, because you're going to make gains, aren't you? Everyone's going to make gains. You're going to make gains for the first 3, 4, 5 years. There's no point jumping on the sauce if you're going to go down that route too early. Yeah.
You're missing some gains, aren't you? You're missing some natural gains, right?
Yeah. Because if you start using so soon, you're going to limit yourself, aren't you? Because it's like the minimal dose, isn't it? Like if you're looking at any kind of drug, you use the minimum dose to get the results that you want. But if you start too early and there's no reason for you to start because you're still getting gains, you're starting on all that steroid stuff. Like maybe let's say you can bench 100 kgs, and then you start on the gear, and then you go up to 160 or 170 kilos. But if you started on the gear when you was at 120, you might be able to take those gains up to 190, 200. Do you see what I mean? Because you kind of run out of, I suppose, runway and space to kind of have the impact of the gear on you. But good luck to everyone. I kind of live and let live. I wouldn't want my children to get involved in any of that sort of stuff. But if that's what people want to do, then the only thing I would say to them is be careful and make sure you don't start on it too early because your mates are doing it, and ask yourself a question: why are you doing it, right?
I've 100% been tempted, and that's just because it seems like a shortcut. And we've taken supplements in the past, well, I have anyway, and you sort of think, maybe it'd be great to be able to get this look, and it's just a short-term talk. I've been tempted. I've never done it because primarily I always joke about this, but it's because I wanted children because there's the big infertility issue, and also I didn't want to lose my hair. But also, just in the same subject of what you talked about, I would have never have known what was me after that. Obviously you got put in some work, but I would have always wondered, is this the gear, or is it I'm a big, I love working out hard. It's the same as my work ethic as well. I put in the time, you get the results, and I think it's the same in the gym, right? And I think if you're going to take some gear, then I just figured it's cheating a little bit. That's kind of my opinion on it anyway. Were you ever tempted or anything? Or
no, not really. I've always just wanted to see how far I can get on my own ability, whatever I got. And I was never going to do it competitively. So if you're not going to make a living out of it, if you're just doing it for fun and you just want to test yourself and see what your kind of genetic potential is, and I'm a fairly logical person. What's the point of doing it? So it kind of never really.
Fucking expensive as well, from what I understand, as well, right?
I don't know. I don't frequent gyms anymore, so I'm not around that conversation.
Yeah, fair enough.
But it became more and more popular, like because I stopped going gyms about 3 years ago. About 3 years ago I stopped going gyms. But it became
Was that
more
COVID?
and more. No, it was before COVID. It's because I just had all the gear here and
Careful of those phrases.
I mean all the equipment, I should say, all the equipment here. But it was the equipment was broken because I was more into the cardio stuff. So it's really hard to get a decent rower with a decent drag factor that's been maintained well at a gym.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, the ski ergs.
What do you mean by drag factor, by the way, Keith?
Okay, so all the Concept 2 gear, so ski erg, rower, and bike, they go off a thing called drag factor, which is basically the fan. So you've got the fan setting. Yeah. So the fan setting. When you go to 10, that's the highest drag factor. When you come down to 1, is the lowest drag factor. It's the amount of air that goes in. If there's like a lot of dust in that flywheel, your drag factor is going to be compromised. So if you go to a gym and you pull a rower as hard as you can, the drag factor might only get to like a 130 or 140 or 110. And you can see the drag factor on the monitor. And some are a bit worse, and some of them slip. Also the foot plates and the straps on the foot plates and the chain and the smoothness of the how it operates and all that kind of stuff. It was very hard at the time to find decent ones. Now it's become more common, right? All this type of equipment is more common. So I see videos of gyms now, and Concept 2 rowers and ski ergs and bike ergs are just popular. I did see a video with the local Pure gym, and they've got a new functional area, and they've got like loads of ski ergs, loads of bike ergs, loads of
in my gym we've
rowers.
only got one of those ski ergs. It was a big place. We've only got one ski erg and then 2 or 3 Concept rowers. I think they get hammered then, don't they? They just use all the time.
Yeah, exactly. They're pretty robust. That's what they're famous for. But I was really frustrated for so for example, I would be training on the ski erg and trying to get the fastest time I could for a certain distance. And when I was kind of doing a training cycle to improve, it'd be broken, the handle would be broken. So one handle would have snapped off, or there would have been slippage because it's not maintained. So you go and pull, one will pull and one will slip.
Oh, right.
So I just got kind of frustrated about that. You've got to have consistency
especially if you're trying to compare PBs and stuff, right?
Exactly. And
let's be honest, it's nicer to have all the equipment at home as well, isn't it? There is a massive convenience, especially if you've got a room like you have. What have you got back there?
Rower and a bike. So that's why I kind of stopped going to the gyms. And also for me, it was probably safer for me to stop going to the gyms because you're comparing. I know you shouldn't, but it's human nature. When you see someone lift something super heavy and you think, oh, I could do that.
Yeah, definitely.
And you go and do it, and you go and tweak a muscle or pull a muscle and all that kind of stuff. You try not to do it, especially if I
blokes' nature.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's a weird one. I think you have to be self-motivated to be able to train at home, because I've got stuff in the garage, but I also have my gym memberships, one of these cheap warehouse jobby ones, and I try and go when COVID isn't an issue, like once a week, and I do get a bit more motivation being in a well-lit, larger space with other people training. I think on the flip side of what you said, it can be sometimes for me motivating to be around other people that work out. But there's obviously the thing that you said about, you're never going to be the biggest guy in the gym, and you sort of sometimes think you should lift more than you should. I do see what you're saying. I'm just trying to keep the best of both worlds while it's cheap at the minute. When everything closed during COVID, I was strictly garage gym, and I got some consistent gains because it was just out there. The weather was nice because it was during like spring and summer. And I got back to some big lifts.
It was cold this morning, so I was because we probably had it where you are as well, like mad frost, and bars were freezing. Because I always train. I shouldn't say train. It used to wind me up because I'm not training for anything, am I? Yeah. So I'm working out. So I was working out this morning, and my hands were freezing. I couldn't get the bar warm, so I had a hot cup of water, and I was kind of trying to warm the thing, and I was warming my hands, warming the bar.
Wicked.
Yeah, but it's
I've got a tumble dryer in my garage, and if it's bitterly cold, it's got the cable that I hang outside the door when it's on, so I don't get all the moisture in there. If it's really cold, I'll turn it on with nothing in it and just keep the hose inside just to take the edge off. I've recently just bought a what do we call it, a Rogue Echo bike. Squeeze that in there, and that's wicked, because I was finding it hard I used to warm up just running around the block and then do dynamic warm up. But with this, I can kind of do 10-minute intervals that fits nicely in with family life at the minute, or do some warm up. And it really helps having like some CV equipment. I've never had CV equipment in the garage, but it definitely helps.
I think the CV equipment is one of those ones where it really benefits when you're at home. You can actually do that, because you'll make any excuse not to do it if you have to kind of go somewhere else to do it. And if it's too cold to run and all that kind of stuff, if you've got something. Although saying that, the assault bikes and echo bikes and all that kind of stuff, I find them very difficult to do anything outside interval training. So if you want to do steady state, I always find those sort of
do you know what I thought? The same, and I was apprehensive about buying it because of that reason. But recently I did a good 45 minutes at a fairly slow pace. I think what it is because, you know, the fan drag, it's encouraging to keep going harder with it. Especially because you've got the arms and legs going. But whether it's because this one I've bought has got a belt rather than a chain, it feels slightly different to the chain-driven assault bike. And I can go steady state for quite a while. But I was worried about that for that reason, because for warming up, you don't want to just go hell for leather straight away. Or equally, sometimes you do want to just put on a podcast or YouTube video and just, you know, do a good half hour, 40 minutes. And it's actually been all right. I can recommend it for like some steady state, but also it's got a custom setting for intervals, and I just do sort of 15 on, 45 off or something like that. Do some lactate work, and it's really hard, but it's wicked.
It's hard, It's a good bit of kit. I'm glad I got it. It's a Rogue one, you said, yeah?
Yeah, I bought it secondhand off my mate, but he'd barely used it, so I got a good discount on it. But yeah, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, they do look solid. Right, I was looking at them a while back in regards to if I could have another bit of cardio equipment. What I'd really want is one of those curved runners, but they're about £6 million. So there's no way I'm
going to about £6 million.
Exactly,
have you ever been on one? Have you ever been on one?
I have. They're quite different to a normal one, but you can speed up and slow down a lot more naturally. They seem to tax your legs a bit more because they're self-powered. There's no motor in them.
We try and go back to our wedding venue like once a year, and they've put in a nice extension in the spa, and they've put one of them in it, and I was like, oh god, I've gone one of these, and I probably did the thing that everyone does on it, because I'm used to running on a belt. I couldn't stop. It was just progressively gets faster because I think I've shifted my weight forward. Then propels you backwards. And before I knew it, I was sprinting. I thought that's what you're supposed to do. You sprint and then use your arms to stop. And I kept doing it, and I was like, "Fuck, this isn't right." And I looked on YouTube, and I think you're supposed to keep your torso upright and use your core to brace yourself. And it's certainly very different to what I expected to be running like. And it's supposed to be better for your body, but at the time it was ruining my body. But I think if you got the money, it'd be good, right? A long term.
Or money and space, but that's really out my ballpark. Running is one of the most difficult things you can do, I find, especially as you get older. So I went for a jog with my eldest a few months back. Probably about
how old are your kids, Steve? Sorry,
14's my oldest, and
no way
9 is my youngest, all coming up to 9.
They'll be lifting with you now.
Oh, they are. So I got 2 boys, 1 girl, and the girl's in the middle, so 12. So my eldest and my youngest were doing bench and abs and back yesterday in the gym. Nice. I wasn't training, but they was training, and
so training without you as well.
Yeah, well, no, I was in there supervising because I don't want them to do anything silly, because
we've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just trying to keep them healthy and not tear themselves down or injure themselves. But I got them in a nice bit of competition, actually. I managed to do about 8 sets, which is quite a lot. They did hanging leg raises afterwards, but we always warm up with back before we do chest, back and shoulders. Do you know what I mean? So it was some band rows, some not dumbbell rows. It was just with a weight plate for each of them. So it was good.
Sounds like they've got a good coach. They've got a good coach there.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm pretty beat up myself.
No. I think honestly, all the things that you've touched on and you've taught me in the past is things I've stumbled across eventually from lifting, just because you can't train. Me and my mate, you remember Ads? Do you remember Ads? My mate Adam? He was on the podcast, the first one. Right. Maybe you never met him, I don't know. Maybe he just pretended. But we were having a conversation about this, and we used to just go hell for leather, and I wouldn't leave the gym unless I was actually buggered. And it wasn't a good session until I was beat up. I've learned now that that's completely false. You need to really listen to like how you're feeling that day, and also gear your weekly volume around, how you're feeling. because one heavy leg session or lower body session or anything like that is quite tasking, can affect me for a few days now. And you probably find that as well. You know, I have to like look at the overall weekly picture, not just one session anymore. You know, it's that's what it is.
Well, if you overcook it on one session, it could affect you for months. Where I find it affects me is sleep. If I go too hard, I can't sleep. Because I'm wired, like, because you kind of hyped yourself up and all that kind of stuff, and I tend to do the weights after work. I don't like doing weights in the morning because I'm not warm enough.
Same. I find it janky now. I've never really rated morning sessions. I have trained in the morning for necessity sometimes, squeeze it before work, or I've got something else on, but I've never gone heavy. And if I have, I've paid for it. And there's lots of studies that show about synovial fluid. I believe it's the level of fluid in your spine. You're not hydrated enough. So you're actually slightly drier, affecting mobility and readiness to lift heavy in the morning. Although testosterone's higher, from what I understand. So that's another perk. But for me, alertness and mobility, they're not there. I feel great after the gym if I train in the morning, but I definitely have always lifted heavier in the afternoon or evening.
The only one I do in the morning is my Sunday morning. So I do Sunday morning, and I do that early because then I've got the rest of the day with the family. But on work days, I do the lifting in the evening, and any lower body stuff is always in the evening because of like what you're saying about that synovial fluids. And I read somewhere, and I don't know how accurate this is, but when you're lying down, the fluid in your spine, that kind of distributes differently, right?
That's what the same articles I think I've read. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And so you're creaking, like anything that puts load in your spine. You might, know, I don't squat anymore. I don't deadlift anymore. But even things like Romanian deadlifts and leg press,
They're still compressive, right?
Yeah, it's still compressive, and you can feel it, and it really hurts. So it hurts less in the evening because all that liquid has distributed itself out in your spinal cord. It could be all bullshit. But,
it makes sense to me. I'm always saying in any of these videos I do, like, listen to your body, and if it feels like it's right, it probably is. And from what you were saying, from your experience and my experience, you know, the same thing. I feel much more ready in the evening to lift. You know?
Yeah. But cardio is different. Cardio I can do in the morning, and it's a good wake up as well. So
better than a coffee. Do you drink caffeine before in the morning? Or?
Well, I went through a stage where I stopped caffeine completely, and just for my mental health, too much anxiety, too much I don't know, just
it makes you jittery and anxious. I mean,
exactly.
I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but from what I have read in the past, it's good to apparently leave it an hour or so before you have your first cup of coffee to let your cortisol levels level out, because effectively, apparently, when you're taking caffeine, it boosts you up like adrenaline would, and so it can affect your stress hormones. I might be just bro science in this, but I'm sure I've read something like that. I've tried the no caffeine as well, and I enjoy drinking coffee and maybe the act of making a coffee, sitting down, even reading emails for work. But at my very most stressed, where I had to take, a break from everything, I was living off caffeine, and it was just not good. It affects your sleep, and it was just a bit too much. And I hear you on the anxiety thing.
So back on that one, I do drink caffeine now, but it's very in moderation. I'll have a coffee because I like the taste of coffee, maybe once or twice a week, but that's about it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll just have a couple of cups of tea, and if we got decaf, I'll drink decaf as one of those cups. So I might only drink one cup of caffeinated drink a day.
Do you feel you sleep better? Do you think you sleep better?
I don't sleep well at all anyway. It's just one of those things. I can't remember the last time I slept through. I typically wake up 4 or 5 times a night. So I think caffeine will probably make that worse in terms of being able to fall asleep. But things like caffeine and working out, having a hard weight session in the evening will really
get you buzzed, doesn't it? I used to finish work late, take a pre-workout at 8 o'clock at night, have a great session, and then be buzzed till 1 in the morning, just sitting in bed. And
I mean, you're not recovering, are you?
No, exactly. I mean? It's just robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? It's just it's silly. And I see it now a little bit more. I definitely have to bear in mind my caffeine intake as I'm older. I probably have a coffee in the morning, 10ish, and then latest I'll never take it later than 4, because I think it's got about a half-life of about 8 hours, don't they? So that's still in your system. A half a cup of coffee is still very much in your system by midnight if you're taking it at lunchtime.
So you really want to get that out of your system before.
It makes me piss loads as well. And speaking of pissing, Keith, I'm just going to whiz. Is that all right?
Yeah, no worries, mate. Right. Go for it. Yeah. I might do the same.
Right, we're back after the piss stop. Talking about old people pissing. Okay, so where are we? One of the things I wanted to talk to you about you've already touched on, which was you don't squat, you don't deadlift anymore.
Yeah.
And I've got this list of sort of 10, 12 things that I did some research over, and I've called it old man tricks for recovery and longevity. And I'll go through that, but if you don't mind, is that all right? And the first
That's
one
right, yeah.
I've found to be true is don't lift above 90% of my one rep max to stay safe. I used to try and test my 1 rep max sort of once every 6 to 8 weeks. And even when I was younger, it would be like, I'd do my bench to failure. I'm assuming the fact that you don't squat and deadlift, you found something, you know, similar in that.
Yeah, so it's probably on your list anyway. So a few things. One of the ones is avoid movements that aggravate you. That's key, right? But
it's common sense, right?
Yeah. In terms of the movements that you can do, try and stay in a moderate rep range and work yourself to a medium rep range if you want to get stronger. So like before, when you're younger, you might start a training cycle doing 10s and 12s. And then go down to 3s before you hit that single, and then have 1 week's break or whatever, deloading, and then you'll repeat that 10 or 12s and go back into that. So now what I would be doing if I was trying to get stronger would be start on like your 15s to 20s. And then go down to 5s. And then,
so you don't go as low as 5, basically. Is that sort of your lower end rep range?
It depends on the exercise, but generally, if some exercises feel you feel good on, you can go lower. But if you want to kind of feel safe and just a bit more rep volume per set.
100% agree. I basically hammered it when I first had Arthur. And I foolishly did something similar when I had Sienna. I had this sort of thing or just before they arrived, I want to get in the base shape of my life before my kids arrive, you know, because I'm never going to get the opportunity again. And I was lifting heavy and doing some crazy volume with high loads and low reps as well. And I just ended up having to go see a chiropractor because I'd done my back in. I wasn't warming up enough. I was basically like doing hill sprints without warming up, and I just got hamstring ping. And so now I realize that take more worth in my warm-ups and keep them higher, a set of 20 and 15, which I never did in the past on a squat or a bench. But I think it increases volume and it also prepares your body a bit for some of the lower loads. So in weeks now, I probably haven't been lower than 6 reps on anything, and I feel I've not broken myself. So that's an achievement.
What I do sometimes is only do a single, but that single is something I can do like 8 reps with. So just try and move it as quick as possible. So like a
bit more power.
Yeah, exactly. So I might just do 1 single and try and move it super fast, and then I might do the single again 3 minutes later and try and move it super fast until it feels good. And then I'll move the weight up. Kind of keeps it a bit safer.
You work in the form, basically.
Exactly.
The muscle connection.
Yeah. But it's your ego as well. Sometimes your ego will say, look, you can go a bit heavier and move this a bit heavier, but try not to move up weight until it feels good. You know when it'll feel good. You know when you've got that bar speed, and just kind of stay disciplined to the fact that if it feels slow, then do another set at that weight until it feels good, and if it doesn't feel good, then just do a shitload of volume at that weight instead. That's another kind of thing to mix it up if you get bored, because everyone gets bored of doing the same pattern of training.
Last year when I made some good strength gains but ended up being broken at the end, I was strictly following a program because for me it was like I needed something just to keep me on rails, and I didn't listen to my body enough. I did 2 cycles, got strong, but I needed to take some time out because my back was sore, my elbows were sore, you know, just because it said 3 to 6 reps, and I should have just stopped at 2. I'd just grind them out, and grinding is something that's not advised now, I think, in the way I lift. It's sort of really listen to your body. So I'm trying to look at other ways to increase intensity. So I've sort of gone a bit of a side to a program. I have a guide, but I definitely think more about my body. So say if one day I have to do this, I'm like, I don't fancy doing that because I'm a bit janky, my elbows or back. I just completely avoid it. Whereas in the past I go, no, that's what you got to do, Ross. It's Tuesday.
It's in the program. It's in the program.
It's a damaging side of having programs, I think, isn't it?
I mean, it is a damaging side, and it's a lot of, I suppose, people that go to the gym and work out and all that kind of stuff, they've got a bit of obsessive about them, right? And then the discipline and all this kind of stuff. So you're kind of obsessed about getting your numbers for that week, and you've got to hit those numbers. You've got to hit those numbers, and you can't not go in and do your squat or your deadlift that day because your programming says you've got to do, I don't know, 3 sets of 3 or I don't know, 4 sets of 4 or whatever. I think as you get older, that kind of discipline and that regimen doesn't work anymore. You just got to listen to your body, because otherwise you will break it. You'll break it a lot quicker because you're less resilient. There's so much more wear and tear on your joints, but you've got to look after yourself. And if you're not feeling it, then you cut the session or do something else.
That takes a lot of discipline, doesn't it? I think in the past, the same, on the program, it said a cookie cutter program, I bought off the internet, whatever. I might have slammed my PBs into it for it to work out. So I'm like, oh, it's my program. I would finish it, even though if I'd tweak something. For years, this is the case, but I've only recently just listened to my own advice. If you niggle something in the program, just stop. Whereas before, if I'd done something and my shoulder hurts a bit, I'll go, oh no, I've got 3 more sets. Yeah, I finish it. And it takes discipline and wisdom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Stupidity is the definition of just repeating your own mistakes, isn't it? I think.
Well, I suppose the strange thing is that by the time you're old enough and wise enough to kind of take on that knowledge, it's too late.
Yeah,
because you've done yourself the damage.
Big irony, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like fatherhood, right? When you're growing up, your dad might say, "Don't do this," and you don't listen to him, and you do it, and you make the mistake that he kind of predicted, right? And then you carry on that cycle for years, and when you have your own kids, and you start sounding like your dad to them, and then you can kind of see it now. You're thinking, "Oh shit!"
I completely relate to that, Keith. 100%. Like, my dad would always be like, "Take a coat, you'll get cold." And I was like, fuck off, I'm not bringing a coat. We've got to check it in or something.
My son, my eldest, he hates wearing a coat, and he'll have the biggest strop when I say wear a coat. But yeah, I know where you're going on this one. Yeah.
Always. And then the other one, I'd love my computer games when I was young. My brother was a sporty one. I was a dude that just loved computer games, right? Yeah. And so I'd just stay on side, smashing out the Super Nintendo or whatever I was playing on. He was a jock. He'd be like, get outside and get some fresh air. That's a really bad impression of my own dad. But and I was like, what are you talking about? But now when I work like a full day behind a desk, I need to get outside in the fresh air. Fresh air and just being outside is absolutely rejuvenating. And I never understood it when he used to tell me, get outside, get some fresh air in your Hedeman. and he's totally right. All these things that he's been saying in the past is right. And you should listen to your parents, but you don't.
Exactly. It's too late by then in the training space. You've done yourself all the harm already. Your joints and the knackered, your discs are bulging or whatever, and
it's a good analogy though. I like the parenting analogy. I think that's good. Well, that's why we're here, Keith. We're kind of trying to try and do someone some favors. They might just take this information just throw out the window, but if someone listens, then we've done our job. That's how I feel with any of the podcasts I do or any of the videos I do about mental health preservation. If we help someone, then it's worthwhile, right? And we get to catch up, right?
Yeah.
So that was like number one. Mm-hmm. Don't lift above your one rep max. And then you've already touched on it actually when you said about training your kids. Number two was match or better a 2-to-1 ratio of backside or posterior chain. So basically what I mean by that is if you're going to press, do 2 pulls, and it's the same with your lower body. So if you're going to squat, do 2 deadlift or glute work. Mm-hmm. And this is something that someone else taught me. And I'm learning now that even if you train back before chest, you get a great shoulder mobility and it really helps work out. You've obviously used that because you've instilled that into your kids as well. Yeah,
so it's chest day on a Sunday. So before I do any kind of pressing movement, I will always do banded back work. So like your mini bands, your red bands, or whatever, depending on how I feel.
What do you actually do with it? How do you warm up with them?
So I grab the bands. I've got on my dumbbell rack. I wrap the bands around there, and then I just row them. So it's like standing rows, and I'll do 30 reps for a minimum of 2 sets, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. I have very little rest between there because I want to get the blood flowing. They're not that fatiguing from a mental perspective because it's such high rep work and it's band as well. So you probably only need a minute's rest between each set. So you get the good blood flow in your body. So it's all pumping. You kind of feel it loosen up.
Yeah,
your kind of chest and your shoulders. And
do you work at a desk as well, Keith? Do you work at a desk?
Yeah,
because I'm quite hunchy.
You get hunched over. Yeah.
It's good to open it up, right?
Yeah, open it up. You get the posture for getting into position as well because you're really looking at nailing that posture. And then I do face pulls. So I get the band, put it on the pull-up bar, and then I just do the banded face pulls, and I do 30 of those as well. And I try to do a minimum of 2 sets. Sometimes
that with the mini band, like the mini band, right?
Yeah, the mini band. Yeah. And it's really focusing on the contraction and pulling it back. So it's not like you see some people, and it's almost like a row. Do you know what I mean? They're doing it as a row, but I'm trying to focus on the rear delt and sort of the rhomboids and get that scapula.
Mr. Jeff Cavalier, you know, from Athlete X, who's another absolute hero of mine.
Right.
He's second to UK. Yeah. The cue, he says, for face pulls is bringing your hands past your ears.
Yeah.
You know,
So I'm like this.
It is easy to do this, isn't it? You know, rear delt.
Exactly.
Yeah, up and bring it out as if you're pointing, or most muscular as if you're flexing. You know, like that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. You know, like some people warm up, they go like that, don't know. I don't know how to call it L-fly or whatever it is.
Okay.
It opens up this scapula and all this kind of stuff. So it's almost doing that, but I find it better, better for the blood, and it seems more of a natural, and it's more of an economical movement because you're not doing one.
I've never really done them before my training program, and I should probably. I always try and squeeze face pulls in there, but it's almost like a finisher with a bicep movement or an ab movement. It's like it's not too tasking, but maybe by that point, I'm just thinking now I'm too exhausted to get a decent workout or benefit from it. So maybe I should do it at the beginning.
I think it's good for pressing workouts. So if you any kind of pressing workout, whether it be overhead, whether it'll be some kind of bench press, if you start with that and don't go heavy and just do those 30 odd reps, a minimum of 20 reps, and feel the contraction. If you can do that, it really warms your shoulders up. So I'll be quite lucky. I've never really badly injured my shoulder. Where I'm injured is my pecs. I've torn both my pecs, not like to the extent I needed surgery. Yeah, where I've had quite severe bruising on the pecs, and when I tense the pecs, there's like big dimple holes where the pulls are, but nothing major serious like torn from the bone and big bruising all the way up the bicep and this kind of
I think
stuff.
that's a lot of geared lifters that are lifting heavier than maybe their tendons allow them to, isn't it? From what I understand, it's quite common in geared lifters, I think. When I say geared, not in a suit, as in, you know, the other gear. But I'm pretty impressed you've never had a shoulder injury. That shows your wisdom, mate. Because I've had a good couple over my life that have like impaired me, and I think it's the most common injury, I think, lifting these shoulder stuff.
Yeah, shoulder's very delicate because the range of motion you've got in the shoulder and how far you can move it all around and all this kind of stuff.
It's the only joint, isn't it, that does that? Is it the only joint like it?
I think shoulder? Because it can go that way, it can go all sorts of directions. So I don't want to jinx myself, so I've been lucky on that front. But where I'm most injured for upper body stuff are my elbows and my pecs.
I used to get elbow pain even last year that stopped me squatting. I've had to change my squat from a low bar to a high bar because where I'd had it locked onto my back in a low bar, I think a lot of the load was transferred down to my elbow, and it was getting serious pain inside. I think, what's the inner side? Is that tennis or I can't remember.
I don't know.
One of the problems, yeah. I do like a chest and back workout. I think they're quite complementary. But even if I'm doing just pushing by itself on a day, I'll make sure I'll definitely do some pulling on another day. And that's just quite common sense in it, I think. But I'm going to try now when I do like overall body circuits, I always do a lot of body rows. I think they're very good for keeping my upper back tight.
On the barbell.
Inverted rows, yeah. I think they're underrated.
No, they're good.
What else have I got on here, Keith? Have we already touched on this? Don't pull off the floor more than once a week.
Well, I don't pull off the floor at all.
But what about your hex bar? Do you use that off blocks or the rack again?
I suppose that's not really a pull. I didn't see that as a pull because it was very quad dominant. I saw it more of a push as a replacement. So at the time, I didn't have anything that I could train legs heavy with. So I started squatting again, and I got up to it was 120 kilos quite quickly. But then I couldn't move. Like it was really what's the word I'm looking for? Debilitating, and it was really bad on my lower back, and it was going to cause more long-term damage than it was worth. Yeah. So I was trying to find something which I could use to work on the quads.
Yeah. I like it. I actually find it good, the hex bar, especially with the high handles. It's a bit more like a leg press, which you've got, by the way, which I'm so jealous of. But
so that's what I was using it for, right? To try and get the quad work, and that was off the floor. So you can do it. You can either do it with the high handles or the low handles. With the low handles, you kind of put more pressure on your lower back. So
it's more like a conventional, isn't it?
Yeah.
This sentiment, I suppose, is because I found as well, when one of the programs I've used, it was sort of 2 deadlifts a week, which is way too much for me. If I'm going to go anywhere near a 5-rep range on a conventional deck, which I think this is what the sentiment comes from, don't pull off the floor. They're talking about probably conventional bar. I definitely can't do more than once a week, maybe even once every 2 weeks these days, like because it's so tasking, isn't it?
The lower back takes a while, doesn't it, to recover. I stay away from the deadlift because for me it's not a good movement. Yeah. I don't miss it that much. I miss squatting, but I don't miss deadlifting. In fact, I didn't used to deadlift that often, I found that when you were building your squat and your squat was going up, your deadlift would go up as well.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
there's a lot of carryover. And you could do minimal deadlift work. You could probably get away with stiff leg deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, and some kind of glute work
I agree.
to build your deadlift.
Sort of hip hinge work, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think twice a week is, unless you're built for deadlifting, it's pretty much going to.
I think if you
put you
vary
at
it
risk.
up, it moves on to my next point about concurrent programming. I think if you vary up the movement, so you can say, let's pull with a different grip handle or at different heights, so say from blocks or the rack. It's technically not from the floor, but you're pulling. I think you are safer. What I miss, I actually got rid of the dead, just like you were saying, for quite a while after my, I said I got a bit janky last summer. I got rid of it. And what I found was my lat and upper back and trap development was weaker. And I think it was affecting my pressing. And I've recently got back on the deadlifts, but a lot lighter. I've been doing sort of, 5 sets of 10 and even some 10 sets of 10. So keeping it light. My traps and upper back feel so nice and tasty. It's just like, I think deadlifts have always really got my upper back and lats, especially if you're locking your arms in. Like no other business, I think, for me, a deadlift works my upper back. I think it's underrated for like upper back work.
I think it's all down to your structures, right? So what might be good for you and work for your upper back for that movement might not be the same for someone else. It's all about your leverages, and the older you get, the more you understand that. So there's not one silver bullet movement for everyone. You've got to find those movements where you can actually feel it and don't injure yourself on. I think that's as a younger lifter, if you can find those movements sooner and understand which ones give you the most benefits for the lowest risk, then you're going to be in a lot better position for a lot longer in time.
100%.
I think it's getting that education out there about those sort of things.
Deadlift's one of those weird ones where I think it's glamorized quite a lot as one of the big 3, big 4, isn't it? So people think, even young guys that have got this healthy spines, they'll just deadlift and it sees progression quite quickly, I think. I wish I could tell myself, you don't really have to deadlift, like you just said. There's lots of other movements, because it was seen as a, if you're a proper lifter, a proper barbell, into like weights, then you want to be doing a deadlift. You have to be doing a deadlift. It was kind of like hammered home back then, wasn't it? Because it's such a good compound movement, it is almost abused. That's how I used to, see it. But I think if I could tell someone, there's lots of other ways, hip hinge work, as we said, even some rack pulls to avoid it, I would probably have saved quite a lot of injuries in the past from not doing deadlifts.
Yeah. With my sons, if they really want to kind of work out and lift weights as they get older, obviously it's up to them. I'm not going to force them to do anything, but if they're interested in it, I really want them to be able to train safely with longevity and don't get beat up, and keep their joints and their body healthy. And that's one of the things I'm going to kind of try and hammer home is look, you don't have to bench, squat or deadlift. There's tons of stuff you can do out there which are going to give you a lot of benefit and not have the risk to your body.
Well, what you can do, Keith, is just play this video to them and go, look, it's on YouTube. Your dad's been on YouTube. You just listen to this. If you don't listen to me.
Yeah, unless they want to be powerlifters, but I don't want to disparage powerlifters, but there's no money in powerlifting, I suppose. But if you find a passion for it, then
that's the thing. Sports are sport, and I think if I never was going to say this properly, specificity, I think is the right word for sport. Like the definition of training is exercise with a purpose, and I think if you are specific for your sport, it's needed, isn't it, at a certain high level? So you've got to do it.
Powerlifter, you got to do it. That's what you got to do: squat, bench, and deadlift. But unless they're becoming a powerlifter or a strongman or something like that, there's no reason.
I remember listening to he's a top level powerlifter, a black guy. He's like super heavy, but he's got like one of the world record combined totals. And he said for years and years and years he didn't actually deadlift. At school, he went to school in the States, they would just squat, bench and power clean.
Right.
And that says something, doesn't it? That at school, when they teach weights, they said they didn't do deadlift because the risk to reward was not there, and they didn't need to do it. And they still, the squat, like you said, and another pull, which was like the power clean, worked it all. So it just comes from powerlifting, right?
Yeah, it's the risk reward, and if it's something you really have a passion for, then I would suggest you find someone who knows what they're talking about in terms of deadlifting and knows about the movement mechanics and how to recover and all that kind of stuff, and get them to look at your form, get them to set up a program for you to do it in the most optimal and efficient way and the safest way. Because they'll be able to see stuff about your setup, about the way you pull and your technique, but most people can't see. They can get the right cues for you to align yourself, to put yourself in the correct position to pull.
So position over your feet
yeah,
and like
yeah,
hip
exactly,
position.
yeah,
It takes years to even progress that. But if someone can film you and give you those tweaks, then you're way ahead of that. I think you're right. You get a good coach.
Yeah, get a good coach. And I always just think that it was just a con and all this kind of stuff. But if you find someone decent, I think they can really help you and set you up so you don't do yourself damage, but also set you up so you can lift the biggest weights.
I've got a friend of mine who's gone back into strength, like I suppose powerlifting, but cross into strongman as well. He's a big guy, sort of around 9,500 kilograms. And his deadlift was probably his weakest movement. And he got a coach and it took him up. I'm not even joking. I think he was around a 150 dead and now he's like a 220 dead just in several weeks of a coach.
Yeah, because of the technique refinements and the coach can see all that because that's what their passion is and they've got an eye for. So rather than rely on your gym bros or rely on some random dude from the internet that someone's recommended, go and seek yourself out someone who's actually done it and knows what
money well spent, right?
Yeah,
if you look at it this way, I suppose I was just thinking about it now. If you look how much you'd pay a physio, 45, 50 pounds a session. One coach would probably be the same. Just pay the front end cost.
Yeah, exactly. Pay the front end cost. Yeah, you're not going to have to go to the physio or the osteopath or the chiropractor or the deep tissue sports massage person, and also you're going to be able to lift more.
Never thought of that. And that was like an epiphany just then. So money well spent in it, really, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Good to talk and all that kind of stuff.
God, but where I was going with it after this was like I sort of touched on concurrent periodization, which was the last program I did was just that. It's a guy called Alex from Alpha Destiny. He's the YouTube channel, right? Young lifter, but he's all natural. And his big theory is you can always lift heavy and in lower rep ranges, but you can't just do the same shit. So you can't just do conventional deadlifts day in and day out. You can't just do a squat day in and day out. So he'll do like belted squats or
isn't that almost like how the equipped powerlifters used to cycle?
Yeah, chains, exactly. It's built off that original it might even be a West Side Barbell program, like the theory behind it. You're right, use bands, use blocks, use slingshots, all these things to basically get yourself lifting similarly, but with slight variation that you don't.
Yeah, because they use specialty bars, didn't they? So on the bench they would have like the football bar, so it's like that, or they would have boards to press at certain depths on their chest. So some weeks they might touch chest, some weeks they'd be 1 inch board, 2 inch board, etc. So they rotate those movements. Only a small variation, but enough to
be specific to your goal, but then enough to save your joints, right? And I bought is it called a football bar? The one where it's got this. I bought that last year.
It's ever called a Swiss bar or football bar? Yeah. I think a football bar slightly different with the handles. Do you still use it?
I don't use it as much just because it's really fucking heavy. To start with, I think it's about 30 kilograms. But I bought it and it's great for pressing and pulling. So for back stuff, like just to do a nice row at a different angle, wider, narrower, but not as much as I should. But it keeps variation up. If I want to do a press or a pull, I'll get it out. It's great. I found it difficult to maybe do a bench press with, just because the way that it can spin when you put it back on the rack.
Right.
Say on a bench, it spins, so you can just rack it. With one of these, when you rack it, depending on where the handles were, the center of gravity of the actual bar it handles itself, it would go like that.
So is that a danger to straining your wrists and all that?
Yeah, I think floor pressing that with it was great because I've got some bumper plates as well. So it was just squeeze underneath it. And so I could floor press with some neutral grip. And you'll have to come around, Keith. I've got loads of special shit in my garage.
Have you got a safety squat bar for your elbows?
Safety squat bar? Oh, no, I haven't. An SSB? No, I don't. No. Yeah. No, I don't. Maybe that's another investment.
I'm surprised you haven't got one with the elbows and
True. Do you find it? I found it was massively front squat for me, an SSB. Like it doesn't feel like a back squat because I think I'm very arse and hamstring dominant in my squat.
Right.
But maybe it would benefit.
But you have to keep more upright on a safety squat bar, which is probably more in line with a front squat. I used to hate front squats because of the amount of core strength you'd need to keep the bar in position. Yeah. Or depending if you had the mobility to do it with a half rack grip or whatever it's called.
Yeah. I nearly choked myself out doing that once. Like,
you seem
quite heavy and had it right on my throat and nearly passed out.
Yeah, but I hated that movement, the front squat. But it's, I think it's a really beneficial movement. Goblet squats I quite like, but you can't really.
I'm loving them now.
Yeah,
I think I can go like the 50 kg dumbbell or something, which getting it up is quite a challenge for me anyway. You throw them up like nobody's business, but like just getting that up for a goblet, and then sometimes I put my heels on the plate to get it even more of a sissy squat, like with the goblet. And in itself, it's quite a nice movement. It's a bit like a front squat because you're challenging your upper body and core to hold that weight over you. But I think it gets really nice pump in my quads. I really like it.
I really like the goblet because it helps teach the squat movement pattern really well, how you open your hips and that kind of stuff, because of where your elbows go down in
touch your
between
knees.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I always thought that was a really good teaching movement for the right
That's a
squat
good point.
pattern. But I don't do enough of them because they're so bloody got so many bloody reps, and they also are quite taxing on the core and keeping it in position.
I think they work well in a circuit. I'll do like a finisher of maybe kettlebell swing with a goblet squat, back to back, and then a rest. Or sometimes if I'm just downstairs at the gym, I'll just do the swings with a dumbbell. You can just turn a dumbbell on its end and do a swing, and then use the same dumbbell to do your goblet. So you just need one dumbbell and you can smash it out. And it's good for like a CV/finisher. I think it's quite good.
Right.
But again, I don't think it builds strength, but it's great for
conditioning and getting good blood flow. It's good for blood flow.
You've done belt squats before? Have you ever done belted squats?
Well, only at home, but I've got a really good setup for belt squat. So you can do it in your rack. So you got your power rack, right? If you put on your safety bar, the barbell and the safety bar. I'm trying to figure this one out now. Actually, you got your safety bar on one side, and then you've got your lift off bar on the other on the same hole peg, When you put your bar in like that, all right, then you put a plate on one side here, and then you put a couple of collars on, and you've got at least one collar on there, preferably 2 or 3 collars, so it doesn't slip.
Doesn't slip off. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. So it holds it in place because it's going to go up and down like that, but you've got a weight plate and collars to stop it. And you've got your dip belt. Yeah, when you put your dip belt and you put it around here, and you've got another weight here. When you unrack it like this, and then you squat like that. When you finish,
you're standing in your dip belt.
Yeah, the dip belt is where it hooks onto the barbell.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
So
you're creating a pivot with your barbell that is loaded onto your belt.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. You got a big 20 kg or 25 whatever plates you've got here on your barbell on that side, which is where you're creating the pivot. That's on the safety bar.
Safety bar. Okay, got you.
So you can move it around. And then on this end, you load up weights. I can't remember how many I got up to, like 4 plates or whatever on this side. Yeah. Then you put another collar on to stop your dip belt from sliding off. You get what I'm saying? Then you put your dip belt there between the weights and the collar, and then you unrack it from the spotter, J-hook, whatever it is. And then you squat down and it pivots.
Are your feet on the floor at that point?
Actually, I've got it on 2 rubber mats.
Okay.
So about that much clearance off the floor to give us a bit more clearance, so you can get more depth. You can get full depth when you can come back up. I'll try and do a video and I'll send it to you. But it's a really good variant for a belt squat.
Let me see. If there's a guy. I really want this set up. So this sort of thing. Right. I'm going to share a screen, Keith. This is what I want to do, but I need to get 2 of these little boxes. And the ones I looked at were either out of stock because it was during COVID, or super expensive. So let me share a screen. And this is what I think would be an easy setup to do. Can you see that come through?
Yeah.
So he's using his belt, and he's quite a short guy, but
as you can see, you can get a really deep range of motion compared to.
Oh yeah.
And then when you get tired, you can grab your rack or your dip bars, whatever he's got hanging out there.
Yeah.
So it's basically just elevating yourself from the floor. And then you can just straight up use your dip, tie some weight to dip belt. I mean, I don't know if you get 4 plates on that like you would, but it always sounds really good though. With it's a bit like, I suppose, a landmine squat sort of.
It is,
right?
Yeah. That's pretty similar to the kind of configuration that I had it on. I'm just trying to find something similar on YouTube. See if I can find something.
That's the guy out off of Destiny, by the way. He does all the concurrent periodization. He's there.
Right.
I like his ethos.
Similar to this, but he does it slightly different to how I do it. Let me just share the screen. Can you see that?
Okay, yeah.
I had this higher, so I had this like sort of. See
create more of a moment then, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right. So you're actually standing out of the rack.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That is wicked, mate.
So that's how I was
going to
doing
give that a go.
Yeah, when you kind of depending on how you do it. Well, I had the safety bars higher, and then you can just turn it off your J hook. He's got a slightly different configuration to me, but you can go pretty heavy with it.
Yeah.
And then have you got any deadlift mats or rubber mats?
I've invested in 2 really thick, sort of about 1/2 inch thick, like made of car tires type thing. And they
so if you do one on each foot as well, Yeah, and then the barbell has a bit more clearance, so you don't hit the floor like he does, because he's hitting the floor. I never hit the floor. Yeah,
that's good, mate. I'm really interested in that. And the reason apparently these are great, they don't cause any compression on your spine, right?
Yeah. And then what I did as well, because I've got like yourself, I think 4 posts in the power rack. Yes, you can hold on to the posts.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like
assist on the last few reps.
Yeah, exactly. Or just to find your balance. So it was
wicked. I never thought about that. Hold on, mate.
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah,
Give it a try.
I don't need to invest in those little squat stands either.
Exactly. Yeah. I used to quite like it, but I just got lazy, and then the leg press you can go heavier, and you can set it up without all
bit
the
less
grief.
fuss in it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, if I had the space, I'd have a leg press, mate. I used to really only use leg press for sort of high volume or like finisher stuff back when I was stronger. I'd use it a lot, but I've started to use it now more because it's just not as tasking on your lower back or even your whole central nervous system. You can load up your legs, you can go high weight, you can change your foot position. It's wicked. So jealous you got one. It's really good.
What I would like to get is reverse hyper for the lower back. I think Rogue do one or someone does one where it folds.
It's the Westside Barber one. There's a guy on here called Gary's Gym Reviews, and I think it's one I looked at recently. Let me see if I can find it. They're really underrated, reverse hypers. I do them at the gym. I tried to knock up something in the garage. Hang on, this is I can share again, Keith. This is probably the same one I think that you're looking at. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's the folding one. Yeah.
Yeah, like because that, if it folds, you don't need a massive footprint. You need a bit of space. You can hang it out the garage door though, if anything.
Yeah.
But what is the benefit to a reverse hyper, Keith?
It's meant to help decompress your spine and open it up and bring blood into that area. And as you know, blood helps healing. So I don't know whether it's just bro science or it actually works, but a lot of people do swear by it. So I'd like to give it a try. I used to do kind of homemade ones, at the gym where you would replicate that on different machines, but it's not actually a reverse hyper. So I'd want to get a feel for it
on the GHT.
Yeah, or even on the leg press with a band on it. So if you go on a leg press and put some matting on the top of the leg press, then hook a band onto your heels, then you can get a little bit of resistance.
I was going to say last year I sampled that in the gym. I put my safeties on quite high and then put a big oak bit of board that I then put myself across, folded my body across it, and then attached around the back of my ankles a band, and then put that band, anchored it to the bottom of my rack. So essentially doing the same movement, but it didn't quite work with the band. It was really top end tensions was massive. The bottom end was none. And I think the idea of this is it's sort of at the bottom end where you're more of an L angle, right? I think it helps your spine there rather than the top, isn't it?
Exactly.
So it wasn't really as beneficial. It was just a lot of grief to get in without any benefits, I think.
Yeah. If I could, I think I'd buy that. And from what I can see, you can do leg extensions and leg curls on there as well, and kind of hack that. Obviously, it's not as good as a leg extension or a leg curl machine. But it'd be an interesting one if I could get it just to see if it helps my lower back. Because even sleeping is
it really that bad?
It's not very comfortable.
Dangling, I've heard dangling can be quite good for your lower back. My mate rates it. Just
I was going to get an inversion boots to hang off the power rack, but I got paranoid that they'll fail and I'll end up
fall on your head or
paraplegic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just bosh, and that's it.
Yeah. Buying something to help your spine that absolutely paralyzes you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I never went through it. It was literally I was about to check out and buy them, but then I was like, my power rack.
What am I doing?
Yeah, exactly. Isn't the sturdiest power rack, especially with all the hacks I've got on it, and then these boots, whatever.
I just think it'll be one of those things that it'd be nice to have, and then you'll never use it just because it's a bit of a faff. Like most things, they need to be easy to use,
Yeah, and that looks quite easy to, even though it's fold, it's easy to set up, and then you can do your stuff on it, and then get into your leg workout.
And use it as a stand-up desk as well. You can just like lean on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
How you sell it to the wife? It's a stand-up desk. Why has it got collars on it?
Yeah, it could just be one of those ones where it doesn't benefit you.
Well, if these Westside guys swear by it, and they know a lot about their lifting, don't they? I think.
Joe Rogan, the podcaster, he's a big advocate of it, right? He says it really helps his lower back.
So I think we both agree that taking some time out from heavy stuff to do some lighter work, you know, to
think
get
it's
blood in the muscles?
Yeah. So, for example, elbow pain. If I can't press because my elbows hurt, what I tend to do is I do a ton of reps on barbell curls or sort of dumbbell curls rather than barbell curls, hammer curls, banded push downs, all that kind of stuff.
Alex from Alpha Destiny, he's a big proponent of what's he called, Overspeed Eccentrics. So, like same thing what you were saying, using bands to go really fast on the push downs and curl work. And he says it gets all the blood in the connective tissues. And he said if you ever get any elbow pain, the same thing. I've never really done it, but definitely going to keep that in my bag now.
Yeah, no, like reps and reps for elbows helps a lot.
And then what else do we say? Do you stretch?
Yeah, so I don't do as much stretching as I possibly should do. I stretch where it hurts. Sounds a bit weird, but
I call it like ironing out your niggles, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
So my elbows is something that I stretch my arms quite a lot to try and get rid of some of that pain. It helps. So I know I'm not doing extra damage. So if I'm kind of feeling tight somewhere, then I'll warm it up and then I'll stretch it. I don't like stretching cold.
No.
I find stretching cold is detrimental to health and
100%.
joints. Yeah. So
I find myself, I like doing, especially if I'm beat up and I want to scratch the itch of actually doing some workout, you know, getting the feeling of that I'm getting into the motion, elevating my blood temperature. I find just sticking something on in the TV in the lounge so I'm keeping warm, doing some stretching whilst I'm watching it. And before I know it, like half hour, 40 minutes is gone and I feel great. I'll get in a baseball, get it in all the nice nooks and crannies, and then have a good stretch, especially for my hips and like my spine. Well, certain movements that, you know, stretch out my thoracic, you know, get a bit of movement in there. They really help, I think. And I need to do that more often with the baby around. It's been really hard, but it's underrated stretching, but it just doesn't feel like working out properly. But when I finish, I'm like, I like that.
You need more discipline to stretch than you do have to work out, because it's boring, but it also can hurt, and it's a pain in the backside to be able to do it religiously. I used to do things like foam rolling and all that kind of stuff. In fact, the last time I foam rolled my hamstrings, which is one of the reasons why I don't foam roll that often now, is I foam rolled before I did a hinge workout, and I pulled a hamstring, went pop.
Oh shit!
So I'd think, you know, kind of connecting things in the head. Shit, that didn't work for me. I'm not doing foam rolling before any workouts or after. You know what I mean? I'm just going to stay away from foam rolling.
The first podcast I did was about recovery, and we rated some of the things that we all agreed were the best things. We touched on foam rolling. I think we all agreed with using it differently. Like I used to stick it in my dynamic warm-ups, but I think what it's perhaps misused. I think what I find it best for is just finding somewhere tender or sore that's tight and just sitting on it. I used to roll around on it, but of course, apparently that increases inflammation. You're just aggravating it. So just sitting on it rather than rolling, get the foam roller or a rumble roll or whatever thing has got knobbles on it and just sit there for a minute till it eases off. And then it loosens the muscle a bit and then have a stretch. And I find that really, really works rather than rolling it, you know, as a lazy warm up like I used to do. But it shows you if you're just pinging, it's not really warming you up, is it?
No, that's the only time I pulled a hamstring, actually, I think.
So that's a no from foam rollers for Keith.
Yeah, it went ping. And then obviously get the bruising afterwards and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, shit, I'm going to be out for a while because hamstring injuries tend to
massively
you have
take
to
a long
kind
way
of
to
nurse them back, don't you? Otherwise you end up pulling them all the time.
Definitely. Yeah, I've done one in the past as well. Exactly the same thing. Thought I was better, pinged it again. So there are things I've got on here. Right, I've got lifting equipment. I remember both of us lifting with belts. Do you still use lifting equipment? Like the theory behind it, for a while I was like, nah, I'm not lifting with a belt because, you know, I want it to all be my core. But if you think about it, if you're preserving yourself, especially when you're older on, you see all the older guys using belts, straps, all this stuff. It's still preservation, even if you're young, right? If I need it, I'll use a belt, but I generally try not to do as heavy to need it anymore.
I don't really do any movements that require a belt. So I find it on a hinge movement like an RDL,
hindrance.
What's the word I'm looking? Yeah, hindrance, and it kind of makes me feel lightheaded and all that kind of stuff. So
really?
I don't really have a need to use a belt.
I suppose if you don't squat or dead anymore, do you? So
yeah, you don't really need it. And I don't go super heavy on anything, so I don't really need any equipment there. In regards to straps and wraps and all this kind of stuff, so elbow wraps and elbow straps, I find I've used compression in the past, but they just tend to mask it. I mean, it lets you lift heavier, but then that's not really conducive to you getting better. You're more likely to going to cause yourself more damage. So rather than hide and mask the pain, it's better to know when it hurts and then just to find something else to do rather than try and mask it with compression. I do use straps when my grip's giving up, or when the barbell's really cold and I'm doing any kind of rows or anything like that, because it just keeps my hands warm without freezing it. But other than that, I don't.
Double overhand, I think it's good. Straps, because as you say, can be a limiting factor in your grip. You could argue maybe you shouldn't be lifting that, but I think what happens if I don't use straps and I say in a dead, if I were doing a dead previously, I then do underhand overhand grip, which force me to maybe lift in a slightly off pattern. My spine would twist. I'd pull towards my overhand hand, and then that puts your back out or your form out. So I think it's best to maybe stick with a double overhand. And if you need to then go heavy or your grip's spare, at the end of a back workout or a pull workout, you can be fatigued. So I think they're good for, double overhand, even chin ups or pull ups sometimes. If you're going really high reps, I think it's nice to strap up maybe on a chin up bar or something like that.
Yeah. Again, so like I only use them when I really, really need to use them. So I don't know, 100 sets I might do it in a month. I might only use straps for 2 or 3 of those sets.
I'm similar.
Because I'll only work up to something heavy enough for me to need to use those straps. Maybe once every 4 weeks. But I don't train heavy every week. It's all kind of undulating, and it kind of peaks and troughs on that.
On that subject then, do you deload? That's one of the other things I'm going to talk about, like either intra-block deloads. So as you say, in your period, you're undulating and ramping up and then take a deload, or every nth week, like, 9th, 8th week. I
don't think I train hard enough to merit a deload, really. I just go volume. So I listen to my body. So if I'm doing a 4-week undulating cycle, it might be first week 12 reps, second week 10 reps, third week 8 reps, fourth week 6 reps, and then start first week again on 10 to 12 reps, etc. So I do it like that rather than have to deload. And the weights,
I think deloads are crucial only really if you get into that top end 80, 85, 90, 95% of your 1 rep max, right?
Yeah, because I never do it. I never go to that point, but I need a deload. But I do think if you're in that space, you definitely do need. I don't think you need it every 4 weeks, though. I think you can probably stretch it to 6 to 8, depending on your own body.
I always found it would be needed that frequent if I did a back-to-back program. So if I went 10-week program, then only took 1 week out, the second program I would need a deload quite soon, because I've already run myself through the mill, then only took a week off, and then up my weights a little bit, started the program again. Like, I think my mate does it every 4 weeks on the dot, and it's probably a good thing to do if you're maybe not as wise or aware of your body like you are. Like if you had it set in a calendar and you can stick to it, because it's hard to stick to deloads, isn't it? If you can stick to it, it's quite good. Because I was always, in the past, I'd be like, no, I'm not deloading. It feels like, being lazy. But then, lo and behold, I'd snap my shit up.
Yeah, exactly. Why am I bothering going to the gym if I'm deloading? Because it's almost like I'm not working out. It's just a waste of time. So why don't I just take a week off? But invariably, if you take a week off, when you start back up, it feels heavier than if you took a deload.
It's funny you should mention that.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel as heavy, and in fact, it feels lighter because you've done the deload. So it works in science, but your brain and the way you're programmed mentally, it's all or nothing, right?
Listening to your body is the key here. And it's just funny what you said, because I only talked to my mate today about some of the things we were going to talk about. He does MMA, and his coach is sort of 46, 47, 48. And one of his advice his coach says is, don't stay stagnant for too long. So it's kind of like opposite of deload. Like it takes a lot of steam to get your train running. You got to keep the momentum as you get older, he said. So, like just listen to your body, dial it down. If you took a week off, he said it's much harder to get back to where he was.
Well,
do you find that?
I definitely find if I take time off, more and more little pains and niggles will surface. It's because that blood isn't kind of flowing in your body. You're not kind of lubricating your joints, and you're kind of almost seizing up. Like if you go on holiday and you don't do any enough physical activity to get your heart rate going or your blood pumping, I will seize up. I'll get more and more pain. So I think keeping active and keeping the machine going is more beneficial than just not doing anything.
When you're on holiday, do you work out?
I try to, yeah. I try to.
Yeah, I'm the same. Because that's what some people say. How can you work out on a holiday? I'm like, well, I actually like doing it. Would you drink alcohol on holiday? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I enjoy doing that. And one thing I've sort of crossed over into just then was like about calisthenics. Do you use body weight? Because arguably some people say, calisthenics is, or however you can pronounce it, I can't pronounce it, is better for your body because it's harder to grind out. We said about like grinding reps out. Arguably body weight stuff is lower risk because it's harder to get wrong. Do you do any body weight stuff?
The only bodyweight stuff I do is pull-ups and chin-ups, but I don't know if you can call them calisthenics.
Yeah, it is. I think it's resistance by body weight, right? I think. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's it. I don't do dips anymore because they hurt too much.
Elbows or shoulders?
Elbows. My elbows can't handle it. I hate burpees. I love burpees, but I hate burpees, so I very rarely do them. For abs, I just tend to do hanging leg raises, calisthenics.
Oh yeah, I used to see a load of people with their shirt off on YouTube in the park doing that. That's a yes. It's a staple, maybe. I don't know.
So apart from chin up, pull up, and hanging leg raises, that's really only real bodyweight stuff I do. I can't really do push-ups very much because my elbows can't handle it.
It sounds like you got beaten up elbows, Keith. What's that mainly from? Do you think?
I think it's bench pressing. Close grip bench press. Actually, looking back on it, I think it was pin presses.
I was going to say, I remember seeing you pin press a lot, and I was going through your Insta, and I think there's a video, and I'm sure there was a video when you were pin pressing shitloads of weight, and back at DW. Where is it? Let me have a look. Hold on. Yeah. Can I share this? Hang on, look. This is you pin pressing back at DW, and that is a close grip, a really close grip. Can you see yourself? Is that? You can see it?
It's a terrible form. But that's 140, right?
It might even be 25 plates. I don't know.
No,
I know you said it. You said it at 140, but that's still that is well hard, mate. And from a dead stop of 140 pin press, I think that's impressive. But you're right. If it beats up your elbow, it's pointless, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I was doing pin presses for years. It's really good for starting strength, right, off the chest. Mm-hmm. When you get older, you can take less liberties with your body and all that kind of stuff.
Depends on your goals, right? Like, I mean, your goal back then was to get stronger, and so you could do specific movements to help you press, right? I think,
yeah.
Too much.
Yeah, calisthenics. I love chin-ups. I think chin-ups are the best thing. Pull-ups I like as well, but they aggravate my elbows, so I do them as not so frequently. Anything with the what's the word, pronated, or which side is that? Is it pronated or supinated?
Supinated is palms facing your face, so that'd be a pull-up. That's a chin. Sorry, hang on. That chin up. Pronated. Yeah. So yeah. That you're right. Yeah. Pronated is you prefer that, do you?
No, I don't like. If anything pronated hurts my elbows. So if I do pull-ups, it really hurts my elbows. If I do bent over rows with a pronated grip, it really hurts my elbows. So
do you row underhand?
I row underhand, or I row parallel, like with a dumbbell or a cable. I can't do that pronated grip very frequently. But anyway, going back to it, I think chin-ups or pull-ups are the best upper body weight movement that you can do.
I think if I had to take some exercises to a desert island, it would include a chin-up or for me, probably a pull-up. I think I do get elbow pain, but I think for me, I like a pull-up.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, what would you call one where you've got like a what's a
neutral chin-up? Probably, I'd call that a neutral. Okay. No, maybe a neutral grip pull-up. I don't know actually. Yeah, that is not. You're on your bar. You've knocked up on your rack.
Yeah. So any kind of grip variation on the chin-up pull-up is a really good movement because it not only works your back, your biceps, your forearms, but it also works your core and your glutes as well because you're tensing everything.
Yeah, 100%. And I think goes back to that concurrent periodization and like just varying stuff up. You can still pull. Just find another way. If it hurts, just change it up, right?
Yeah. One movement that I've kind of found recently that I really like. So in my back workout for weights, I will always start with chin-ups. So it'll be with bands to start with to warm up because I'm old man and I need to get that blood going. So I'll do like purple band, red band, and then I'll do body weight. I might do 2 sets of body weight. Then I'll put weight on, and depending on how I feel, I can go up to 20 kilos. And then I'll back off down to additional 10 kilos when I go back down to body weight for reps. Nice. And then after I've done that, that's my main upper back is, I think they're called iliac rows, iliac pull down, sorry. So you know the ones where you have the pull down and you have your arm like that and you kind of kneel on the floor and you pull it into so you can really feel
I didn't know it was called that. No, I've seen one guy at the gym do it all the time, actually.
Yeah, and then you can really feel it in your lap. Don't pull it so you're elbow is behind you, you need to feel your lat contract, and it really
Yes.
kind of
Is it
And
right
so
like you're locking your shoulder
you
blade
can really
down
feel it.
first.
If you just do it like that and kind of feel your lat there, you can really feel it compress. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you can't
Mhm.
move your elbow behind your back if you're doing it
Behind
properly,
your lat.
because it's
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah. So
Ah,
that's a
what's it
really
called?
good
Sorry.
one. It's called an iliac pull down because it
Oh,
works
okay.
your iliac lats, which are your
Oh,
lower lats,
oh,
apparently.
yeah, awesome.
And you don't need a lot of weight to do that. So for me, I would do about 25 kilos per side and pull.
Just
And
on
you
your
get
knees with your cable. Is that right?
on knees with cable with I've got drop pads in my garage, so I'd save my knees. I'd kneel down on the drop pad and hold on to the outer post on the power rack and get a really good feel on the lat on there. And then I'll
One
go for some
program
kind of
I
heavy
did
road.
called for that as a warm up before he did his chins.
Right.
The Jeff Nippard program. He said to do it as a lat warm up. Actually, it's single
Oh,
arm.
okay. Yeah.
I think he would pull it in and then also flex, because I think the lat also actually has a slight movement involvement in pulling your body down. So I think he brings it in and then moves his body down as well, something along those lines.
Well, I really like it because it's not very taxing, but you can feel the blood get into your lats. It's sometimes very, very hard to get that connection, especially with your lats, to
Definitely.
be able to kind of force.
I think
that
with
blood in
back,
there.
it's hard to train. I've found in the past anyway, it seems hard to train lats or some parts of your back without tasking your erectors.
Well,
Do you see
especially
what
if
I
you're
mean?
in a home gym environment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
and you end up
yeah.
tasking your lower back. I found like setting my bench up at 45 and using my
Dumbbells.
lat bar.
Okay.
Dumbbells as well, actually,
Yeah.
but using my lat bar from the low pulley and doing basically chest supported rows.
Yeah.
That was a nice way to hit my back without tasking my lower back. I find it was always quite challenging, basically, to get a good lat or back workout without tasking your lower back, because it might have already been done from volume work from your squats and your deads.
Yeah, no, as someone who works out in a home gym, you always got to try and figure ways where you can get volume without putting too much load on your lower back. Well, in a gym, it's slightly different because you've got all the machines that can help you do that, but you've got to be a bit more creative in your home gym. So going back to that, one of the movements I cycle in my back workouts is the incline dumbbell row on the bench. I think that's a really good row movement that doesn't.
So is that with your chest against the pad?
Yeah, so it's almost like a chest supported row. With the dumbbells, and you can move your hands around so you can find a rowing position which doesn't hurt, your elbows or whatever, and you can get a really good contraction without and you can't really cheat in that movement because your chest is against the pad. But yeah, I think you can build a really good solid strong back by doing chin-ups and one kind of row.
You ever done the Helms Row before?
What's that?
There's a guy called Ed Helms, I think, who's coined it. It's a bit like, you remember the old school movement where you rest your head against the bench?
Yeah, where you can
rest your chest or head against the bench and you would do fly.
Yeah, rear delt flies.
Rear delt.
Yeah,
it's like that, but you basically row. Again, it takes all the momentum out of the movement and you have to go quite light, but you're still at sort of a hinged position so you can get your elbow really nice and back. So it works your lat. But you just, the idea is, taking the movement out. I think the chest supported row, like you're saying on the bench, is probably better and you can load it up more. But for isolation of your rear delts, it's really good. So you're not actually going like this. You're still bringing your elbows in and back, but you completely take out the momentum. Give it a go. I think that was quite nice.
No, I will give it
Helms Row.
Helms Row. So I'm always looking for different variations. So my back workout's pretty standard. It's chins, it's the iliac pull downs, and then it'll be some kind of barbell row, like a T-bar or a barbell row with the underhand. Then it'll be some kind of cable row. I like the single arm cable row. And that's it. That's all I do for back. Or I might do some pull downs behind my neck. But again, I don't do enough I suppose taxing workouts on any of my weights because it's all secondary to the cardio for me. So I don't want to be so beat up I can't maintain a decent pace doing my cardio work 3 times a week. So
you've got to think about what your main objective is, right? Again, specificity. That word I can't say. But if like a lot of people don't train legs because then they cane it during a football match or something. So it makes sense. You don't train it just because do what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
That's wisdom over the time, isn't it? Over years.
Yeah, exactly. And just kind of staying healthy. Yeah, no, like just to anyone who is listening, hopefully it has been useful. A bit rambly on my part, but
not at all. Not at all, mate. It's been really good.
maybe a bit bro sciencey, but it is what it is. But look after yourself, everyone, and make sure you maintain that form and listen to your body, and don't do anything totally dumb. Yeah.
No, it's right. I think that sentiment for me is exactly the same. So as I always say, listen to your body, do the best you can to kind of hone in on those small signals, even if it means overriding something that someone else has said or your program for that day. Really think, what is hurting? Should I maybe not do this movement? Maybe think, what do I feel like doing today? I don't really feel like doing that movement. Maybe you shouldn't. But definitely just listen to your body, and long-term preservation, longevity should be your goal, because you're only here once. And me and Keith can both tell you, Keith with a little bit more experience than I, it'll catch up on you, those silly things, or the overtraining, your bad diet, all those things, they catch up with you, don't they, eventually? You've only got one body, look after it.
Exactly. And also make sure that your health markers are good, right? Like your blood pressure, your bloods and all that kind of stuff. I'm quite lucky. I get regular medicals at work.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I know my bloods are good. And also my testosterone is relatively good. I was kind of, I don't know if I was using it as an excuse, because with low energy and low mood, it's sometimes related to low testosterone.
Low testosterone,
yeah. So I was keen to get my testosterone measured, because I was kind of being lazy and not really looking after my mental health as you need to, and putting it down to, like, I've just got low T levels and all that kind of stuff, and my blood's come back and my T levels were fine. So it was it was probably myself burning myself out. Do you know what I mean? And
100%. And I know you want to kind of like go, Keith. One thing I would honestly say is my channel is called Mind, Body, Whole, right? The whole thing is a big picture, and if you're not looking after what's up here, nothing works. Everything will crumble eventually. Mental health over everything. We use this as a bit of a medicine for ourselves, but if you're not in the right mind frame, or you things got going on at work and it's all burdening you, definitely you got to look after your mental health. That is the number one rule. You can't do anything in life if you're not functioning up here. And this is why I'm trying to, stay in contact with my mates, and just keep some of that spirit going of blokes should talk. We need to, talk more, because it's all about talking mental health and, sharing knowledge and opening up about how you feel. So I'm glad you touched on that, because 100% reiterate that sentiment. I've been through the ringer with stress, and it sounds like you have as well. And maybe we can talk about it in another session, but definitely, mate. Yeah,
it's always good to have peace of mind, isn't it? That's what we all want. And you've got to look after your mental health as the first thing. And one of the ways you can look after your mental health is to exercise regularly. Not overdo it, because overdoing it can really put demands on your mental health. But if you work out and get those feel-good endorphins going, then it really helps on that front as well. It really helps calm. It really helps. What's the word I'm looking for? Keep you present.
Meditative.
Yeah. So you're not worried about stuff, because you're focusing on the workout and you're not focusing on stuff that might happen. It keeps you present, right? Keeps your mind.
They call it the state of flow, I think, don't they? I think a state of flow is basically where it's not too stressful. It's engaging enough to be engaging. So it's not a monotonous task that you can't focus on. It's somewhere in between. And if you're in that state of flow, you can keep going. You're basically meditative, so you're enjoying it, but it's tasking enough to keep you focused. And I think if you find that balance when you're in a workout, it's a really enjoyable workout, isn't it?
For me, it's a lot not a lot easier, but I can only get that kind of mental state doing cardio workouts. Not interval training, because you're just like hammering it, and it
takes a bit of mental fortitude, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But if you're in kind of a steady state cardio, and you're in that rhythm, you're in that flow, and you're really present, and you're focusing on your breathing and all this kind of stuff, then you're only really focused on that at the time. With lifting weights, for example, when you're actually lifting the weight, you're focused on lifting the weight, but that might only last.
There's a lot of time sitting around looking on your phone.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But if you're just doing the cardio and you're doing a relatively, you're not killing yourself. I don't know what range, but you're in it.
No, I've never really thought about CV as like that, and you're totally right. It is a nice happy medium between you get a bit of physical exhaustion, but not too tasking. I suppose that's why a lot of people can zone out and watch Netflix or something whilst you're doing it.
Yeah.
But I need this is the time in the garage. I'm sure the same with you, Keith. You've got kids. You zone out in that garage. It's my time to just not think about things, or to think about things, but with more clarity. That's the way it is with doing certain levels of exercise for me.
Exactly.
They call it a state of flow.
Yeah, and I think that state of flow really helps with your mental health. And that's why I've kind of moved more towards the cardio side of things than the weights. And the weights are secondary. The weights are there to just, I suppose, maintain bone density, maintain a reasonable amount of strength, and also complement whatever cardio you do, so you can put enough watts into the machine to have a decent time. But to help with that mental state and to help get in that flow state and to be present, I think the cardio is what really helps me, and that's why that's the focus for me rather than weights.
That's nice to hear. No, I definitely feel that. I see that. Some people do it with baking, painting, walking the dog. There's several ways to achieve that state of flow, but I think for me and you, it's probably very similar, like an exercise level where you're just getting a nice bit of endorphin, you're focused on something, a bit of a sweat on, a bit warm, and you're there. You're present in doing what you're doing. Definitely.
Exactly, yeah.
And exercise is brilliant for that. I'm a big advocate for it. But Keith, thank you for giving up your evening. That's one thing I'll definitely say. Thank you for joining, and thank you for giving up your evening. Like, it's amazing. Now, I'll just say to everyone else listening, thanks for listening. And remember, it's just advice. If you found anything you do like, maybe give the video a like or give it a share. But if you didn't, come back next time and you might find something else, you do enjoy. But for now, stay happy and healthy. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Keith.
All right. I'll catch you soon.
Cheers, mate.
All right.
Thanks very much.